Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It's good to see you all. We're just giving it a few moments, as we normally do, to allow our guests to get settled into this virtual learning space. We are always super excited to come to this conversation knowing that others are joining us as well. It's your way of letting us know that you value this time, this space, the content, and the effort that the NWC team puts in, and we do not take that for granted. We will continue to deliver to you an experience that we believe you're going to walk away feeling as though it's worthwhile. So today is going to be no different. I would like to invite you to go to the chat and please share where you are joining the conversation from. We love to see all the different markets and cities represented, and we even often have folks that are outside of the US, and that excites us. And so thank you so much for being here and spending this hour with us. I am Dr. Nika White. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC. And I look forward to holding space with this community of learners today as we learn with and from each other. I also want to let you know that here at NWC, we really do value disability inclusion. So we do have closed caption that has been enabled for those who may need it and benefit from it. I also want to let you know that while cameras are not at all required, they are always encouraged. We love to see smiling faces. And so if you feel so inclined to have those cameras on, then we do appreciate that. We also have a lot of people that will join us from LinkedIn Live. And so if you're one of those individuals and you're participating in this show by LinkedIn Live, hello and welcome to you. We do tend to believe at NWC that the experience is optimized by being a part of the Zoom community. So we will drop that link into the comment section just in case you want to switch over and hop over to Zoom. You have a chance to do so. But if not, we are just glad you're here in whatever capacity and really look forward to presenting some really good content for you today and introducing our guest co-host. If you also feel inclined to stay connected to this community beyond this hour of time, I invite you to go to the chat or the comment section and you can share your LinkedIn information. That is where you let people from this community know that you desire for those individuals to reach out to you beyond being connected just during this hour. Okay, once again, this is Intentional Conversations VodCast, where we intersect conversations of diversity, equity, and inclusion with leadership in business. Welcome. We are so glad you're here. Let the conversations begin, indeed, and that is precisely what we are going to do. I don't want to delay the hour. If you are just joining us, once again, I am Dr. Nika White. I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC, and NWC is responsible for bringing you this virtual learning experience by way of the Intentional Conversations VodCast. And so I want to just take a moment to just acknowledge a couple things right now before we really jump into our special programming for today. First and foremost, we are still in the month of January, so I like to make sure that we are keeping it top of mind that January is National Mentoring Month. And when I think about mentorships, it is one of the most selfless things that a person can do to lend support to someone else. And so if you are someone who may be sitting on the fence, but you have a lot of great contacts and great connections and great insight, then consider mentoring someone if you aren't already a mentor. Also, of course, we take some time throughout this part of the year to really recognize and honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so Monday, many organizations will be celebrating in different ways. Maybe many offices are going to be closed. Perhaps you are participating in different events. I know that last night I was at a scholarship event in my immediate local area. And this morning I was at an MLK breakfast as well. And so I am always looking for opportunities for us to not just honor Dr. King during this time of year in January during the national observance, but let's honor his legacy all throughout the year and what he's meant to all of us in this community. Now, many of you have been rocking it with me for quite some time, so you know that I released book number 3 in January of 2023, and it's Inclusion Uncomplicated, a transformative guide to simplify DEI in partnership with Forbes Book. And I want you to know that this is my book anniversary month, and so Inclusion Uncomplicated turns 1, yay, 1. at the end of this month, and I certainly want to make sure that I bring that to your attention because this community has been great sense of support around my book, and I'm so grateful. And so, if you haven't yet read the book, got the book, I certainly encourage you to do so. It's available on Amazon, Kindle, on audiobook, and there's going to be some talk soon of maybe releasing a paperback version. So, anyway, I hope that you will continue to support Inclusion Uncomplicated. Now, I also want to let you know that I am a LinkedIn Learning instructor. Many of you have been connected to this community and you have supported the course that's already out there, along with 16,000 other plus learners. And it's all about individual accountability for equity and inclusion. I just recorded 2 new LinkedIn Learning courses, which are going to be released in February, March of this quarter. And so I look forward to sharing information with you about those 2 new courses as well. Now, if you like to get your content on the go and you would appreciate being able to have that information available to you at your fingertips, I want you to know that Intentional Conversations is available also in podcast capacity. This is our way of just expanding the reach of how we can get the content out to as many people as possible. So subscribe today, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, and thank you for spreading the word. Now, let me just take a quick moment to give you a little bit of what you have to look forward to in the upcoming weeks as we welcome some new Intentional Conversations guest co-hosts. And I'm so excited about these individuals. This one in particular is Ritu Basin. She is a friend and she does a lot of work around belonging. And I hope that you will join us on January the 19th for her and I to be in conversation. So make sure you mark your calendars accordingly. And then following that Friday on the 26th, we have Tommy Fadille Jones, who's also going to be joining us. Really look forward to her sharing with this community. And so again, mark your calendars for the 26th. Another great show is going to be lined up. And now this brings me to the wonderful honor and privilege of being able to formally introduce today's guest co-host. And I have to tell you, I'm super excited about today's show because this is someone that I admire deeply. She has become a dear friend and we are connected in so many ways. And I am just glad to be able to have her on the show to share all of her great insights. And so, like I normally do, I'm going to read her bio because I want all of you to have the understanding of the accolades, the credentials, the lived experiences that she shows up to these conversations with. And I'm going to certainly extend that opportunity for you to know that right now. So we're talking about none other than Natasha Bowman. Recognized as a LinkedIn top voice for workplace mental health, a top 30 global guru for management, and top 200 voices in leadership, Natasha is a highly regarded for her expertise in diagnosing workplace issues and providing proven solutions. Her ability to craft highly engaged cultures that truly value every employee's contribution has earned her the nickname the Workplace Doctor. As the president of the Natasha Bowman Consulting Group, formerly Performance Renew, Natasha has served clients such as the 4As, Forbes, Hearst Magazines, and RGA. She brings a wealth of cross-sector experience and intellectual commitment to her work. She also serves as an adjunct professor of human resources at the prestigious institution, including Georgetown University, Fordham University, Manhattan College, and the Jack Welch Management Institute. Natasha's impact extends beyond consulting and teaching. She is a sought-after international keynote speaker, sharing her passion for creating positive and engaging workplaces at global organizations such as TEDx, the HR Congress in Nice, France, Microsoft, Google, TripAdvisor, LinkedIn, and Oracle, just to name a few. Her expertise is regularly featured in national publications such as Forbes, Business Insider, U.S. News, and the World Report, the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, and Forbes, again, just to name a few. As a 3-time best-selling author, Natasha's latest book, Crazy AF, How to Go from Being Burnt Out, Unmotivated, and Unhappy to Reclaiming Your Mental Health at Work, became an Amazon #1 bestseller in 2023. Committed to promoting workplace equity and mental wellness, she is also the co-founder of the Bowman Foundation for Workplace Equity and Mental Wellness, and a board member at NAMI NYC. Y'all know what to do if you've been here before. I want you to go find those emojis, find those accolades, those words of affirmation and welcome, and help me to extend a very warm welcome to my friend, a wonderful, wonderful practitioner that does so much work around wellness and well-being. And so I cannot wait for you to be in communication with her. I'm going to add her to the spotlight right now. And I have to tell you that I am so honored that we have this chance to connect today. But my dear friend, Natasha, has COVID. And I gave her every opportunity to say, no, 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 I want to back out. I really did. I told her, we will understand. My community will understand. We will invite you back. And she said, no, Nika, I've been waiting for this. I feel good enough to be able to have this conversation. And so I want to, at the top of the hour, let you all know that I've given her the opportunity that at any point in time, if she needs to step away to take care of self, honor the needs of her body, even cut it short today, that we are all supportive of that. And we're just grateful that you are here with us to share. And so welcome, my friend. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I want
Thank
to give you a
you. Thank
chance.
you. As long as my voice holds up, then I will be there. So please excuse the raspiness. I kind of felt like
Mm.
Phoebe Butte on Friends when she had the
Yeah.
raspy voice and she loved it, you know. So, but as my voice holds up, I'll make it through. But thank you so much.
Oh.
And I've been waiting for this for far too long to let something like silly COVID get in the way. So.
Oh, well, you look great. You sound great. The raspiness is you sound wonderful. So do not worry about that at all. And I want to give you a chance to greet this audience kind of in your
Yes.
own way. But one of the things that we do here, Natasha, which is kind of tradition, is we ask all of our guest co-hosts after we've read their accolades, their credentials, and we've shared a little bit more about their experience. We ask them to then dig deep to maybe share something with this community that we would not know from reading your bio or looking at your profile. Now, I'm going to preface this before I let you jump in, Natasha, because if you follow Natasha, if you know anything about Natasha, one of the ways that she shows up consistently is as her true, authentic self. When I tell you that she is such an open book, and that has been a gift and a blessing to so many people, that I know probably it's going to be hard for her to find something perhaps that she has not really shared or socialized at all. So we'll just kind of give her a little bit of a pass by saying maybe you haven't socialized it in a while.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking when you asked that, what don't I talk about? And I'll talk about this. I spend most of my Saturdays, especially during this season, up until last week. I am an avid college football fan. Like I'm from Alabama originally. And so if you're from the South, football is
Yeah,
everything.
it is.
Although I'm in New York now, I have remained consistent about my dedication to college football. So I watch it from 11 a.m. or when the games start until late in the evening when they're done on the West Coast on Saturday. So I have missed weddings, I have missed funerals because it was during a pivotal
Football season.
football season. Everybody knows in my family, do not disturb, do not play anything. So anyway, so that's something I don't talk about a lot. And it just really is the top of my head because I'm a big Alabama fan. Nick Saban just announced his retirement. We're very sad about that in Alabama world, not to mention not making it to the, championship. But anyway, so that's top of head, something I don't talk about a lot, but you can always find me on Saturdays, college football season in front of the TV going absolutely bananas. People have called my house to make sure that everything is okay.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And lucky for us that, intentional conversations happens on Fridays,
Yes.
11 to 12, not during the football, time. So so glad that that was not a conflict for us. But no, I love that about you. That is so great. So thank you so much. So I do want to jump right in because I think there's going to be so much opportunity for you to share with this audience. Much of your knowledge is really going to be useful. But one of the things that we value in intentional conversations is just kind of leaning in at the beginning around any type of situations that have found its way into the media for the week. And last week, I know we were grieving, and we still continue to grieve the news of Dr. Gay's resignation from Harvard.
Yes.
And while we're continuing to grieve that, I think that many of us were kind of hoping for a little bit of a reprieve to really be able to sit with that for a while. And then this week, just as recent as yesterday, there's news of Dr. Bailey, the vice president of student affairs at Lincoln University, Missouri, who died by suicide. And it was reported to be because of bullying and severe mistreatment of her in her role. Those of you who haven't been privy to the story, this is a Black woman, and she was at an institution where the president is a white male. And we that's hard. It's hard coming off of the heels of the news that we're still kind of navigating and dealing with. And then to this week to be exposed to this news, it's so heartbreaking. And I just want to leave space and time for Natasha, you and I, and even this community to just kind of process together what's coming up for us, how we're feeling, and um, and just hold space for all the myriad of ways that people are kind of navigating news such as this, particularly for Black women.
Yes.
So I'll just want to yield to you. What's coming up for you,
Yeah,
Natasha?
I'm just right now, I just have chills and goosebumps hearing that news. As you said, trying to recover and from Dr. Day's, what I see as a forced resignation. And there was so much conversation around that. And I posted after that resignation, that she did the right thing by resigning because her life was at risk. And I knew that because I too am a suicide attempt survivor. So I understand the pressures of workplace and life, especially as a Black woman. And I've been talking about this, for some years now. And to read this news today is just absolutely heartbreaking. And reading the circumstances, but I mean, we know this is a story that is developing. We don't have all the
Yeah.
news. In fact, you just shared new news with me. I did not realize because like I said, I've been under the weather, so I haven't
Mhm.
really been online as much as I usually am. And I didn't realize the president was a white male, but that's an HBCU. So
Mhm.
when I think about the fact that she probably thought that being a professor at an HBCU, at least she wouldn't have some of the psychological stressors that many of us face when we are in predominantly white spaces. And
Mm.
makes it just even more heartbreaking to know, coming from a family of graduates, including my husband of HBCUs, my father, I mean, almost everyone I know attended an HBCU and shared that experience of that safety there. And to know that she probably, and again, I don't have a lot of information, we're still learning, but just to pontificate that she probably thought that, yes, I'm in a safe space and giving back to my community and being able, to be at an HBCU and to face what I've already read. It's with such a toxic work environment. And from what I understand is that she disclosed she had previous struggles with her mental health, and after her disclosure was when the toxicity elevated. And again, that continues to reign true to me. If you read my book, I talk about my experience of
Yeah.
being the head of HR at a psychiatric hospital um, when I attempted suicide and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So I didn't have the choice of whether or not I was going to disclose, because when I'm brought into the emergency room, I'm brought into my hospital and admitted into my hospital. So my leadership team, right, knew before even I knew, that I was in the hospital. I woke up in that hospital. And after I returned to work, I was faced with, you would think it would be such a good environment. My boss was a psychiatrist, a leading psychiatrist
Wow.
in the nation. And you would think, oh, understands there's no stigma. And definitely wasn't the case. And I too ended up leaving a year after my return, after escalating, went from a top performer, went to, all these things, all these accolades, to when I came back, they didn't even trust me to be in my position by
Mm.
myself. I had to share my position with someone else because they assumed that I would not
Yeah.
be able to perform, only because I had now a diagnosis I had been living with unknowingly for the previous 20 years before then, had accomplished all of these things. So
Wow.
we just continue to face these struggles. And when you try to do the right thing and disclose and get support, and to hear that once again that an organization has failed someone to this degree, it's just very, very disheartening.
Yeah, incredibly disheartening. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts on it. I'm still processing. And to your point, yes, I did fact check the information regarding the president of the university. And so it's interesting dynamics, it really truly is. And it saddens me that we are seeing such an increase. And this has been happening for quite some time in terms of workplace trauma being the experiences of Black women. But I think that um, more recently, we have seen, at least more reportedly, it
Uh-huh.
has come forth information that has been fatal in many instances. And so it just makes it harder to kind of deal with and to process. One of the things I do want to draw attention to is, as I was sharing the story about the Dr. Bailey, I said that she died by suicide. And I just want to draw attention to the significance of that language, because I learn every single day in this space. And this is why I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter if you've been, 20 plus year practitioner in this work or not. We all need to have ourselves in this posture of always learning. But, there was a time that language would be committed suicide. And now the shift is, which I am, being a lot more cognizant of to use, is died by suicide. And I like that it places greater value on the mental health issues that sometimes people don't necessarily relate to being, reasons for someone to do something of that nature, right? And so I think it creates a great opportunity for us just to talk about how the landscape around just that broad conversation has shifted. And a lot of it has to do with the evolution of mental health issues and how we're becoming much more educated about them. And I won't say it's been normalized, but definitely it has come a long way. The stigma is starting to diminish a little bit. People are talking about it more openly and readily. And so I just want to give you a chance, Natasha, to just share your thoughts on how
Yes.
the importance of language and the shifts of language has taken
Absolutely. And you're
place.
right. We are constantly learning. And even I learned something. So I know I did note that you said the right thing by die by suicide rather than commit, because that's something throughout
Yeah.
40 something years of living that, we had always stated. And yeah, you're not committing a crime. It feels like you
Yes.
did something wrong. And if you,
Yes.
I also said that I am a suicide attempt survivor, because I
Mhm.
labeled myself as a suicide survivor, and someone sent me a note and said, "You can't survive suicide." And
Ah,
you're absolutely
you're
correct.
right.
And so they gave me the proper language, and I've been using that ever since. And so, you know,
Yeah.
it's a learning process, and it's okay,
Yeah.
to accept that feedback. And even if you think you're an expert or you've been labeled an expert in that field, to learn and grow and shift your perspectives and embrace them. So that language definitely matters. And thank you for bringing that to the attention to the
Yeah.
that are listening here today.
No, I appreciate that. You're right. That's 100% correct. Yes, you cannot survive suicide. So, yeah, language matters.
Mhm.
Okay, so this leads me to wanting just to socialize around why. I mean, obviously, you shared your story, so it's often our personal experiences that connects us to maybe the niche and the work and the messaging platform that we will align ourselves with. But outside of your personal experiences, you also have a legal background. And so
Yeah,
I just want you to share with this community kind of your journey to where you are today,
yeah.
and how all those different stops have really helped to shape where you have planted yourself today.
Yes, absolutely. You talk about my vulnerability, and the reason I share that vulnerability, because my path here has been not a straight line. It hasn't been an easy path. And so I did go to law school at the University of Arkansas. And, I share that I went to law school as a single mother. My son's first day of kindergarten was my first day of law school, and we were 10 hours away from anyone that we knew. But I got married while I was in law school, had my second child while I was in law school, and graduated. And then I worked for Walmart Stores Incorporated in their legal department. And that was during a time where Walmart, you would hear unfair, labor practices and all of
Mhm.
that. They were
Yeah.
the only, organization you would hear about. It was during that time, and they decided to start a department within their HR space to address those concerns.
Yeah.
So I shifted from legal to HR. This was very, very, maybe a month after graduating from law school and being in the legal department. So stayed in HR, stayed in corporate, and then they transferred me to the field where this is how I ended up in New York. I was the head of HR for the stores here. So I loved, unexpectedly, I loved New York, and decided to stay and went from there to healthcare, being the head of HR at several healthcare organizations. I started my consulting firm while I worked full time. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. That's another thing a lot of people don't know unless you've read my book, is that although you have seen me in the consulting and speaking space for many, many years now, I worked a full-time job along with that
Oh,
for many
yeah.
years. And I was the head of HR for healthcare organizations while running my consulting and speaking firm at the same time, and then went full time and been doing the professorship for about a decade as well. And so along that road, right, I've been the first and only in the C-suite at organizations. It is it's been quite a journey, and
Hmm.
it's and I've tried to share every path of that journey so that people don't see me and think, oh, you've had, a C-suite position, you own a,
Yeah.
done all these things that, and obviously there's been a great path and such as, no, like it has not been an experience, especially with my mental health crisis in 2020. So many things along the way, and it's so important that I send a message that not only can you can navigate through these things, and
Yeah.
not alone. And many of the things that you're experiencing today, I've been through, others have been through. So I not only share my story, but the stories of others' career journeys, just to give people hope. Because some days you just feel hopeless,
Absolutely.
right? And
Absolutely.
I try to give people as much hope as I can that whatever you're facing today, and it may seem like you're in the worst circumstance that you could possibly be in, I've believed that at some point, and many points during my career journey as well, and I have found a way to overcome that. There's hope on the other side.
And you're such a great model for that story. And I think that's why so many people are really endeared to your style, your approach, your content. I mean, if you do not follow Natasha Bowman on LinkedIn, y'all, she has like over 100,000 followers and connections, and she's been on Oprah. She has LinkedIn Learning Course. There's so much more that I can share with you that didn't find its way into the opening kind of reading of her bio and credentials. And I think it says something about how people are craving authenticity. They're craving being able to have people vulnerably share some of their real life experiences as a way to illustrate that they also can certainly have hope and can change their situations as well. So I want to talk a little bit about your book right now. I actually have a couple copies of your book, and it is really really a great read. And I want you just to share with us. I want you all to get the book. So I'm not going to have Natasha to kind of give you all the tidbits, but I'm going to have her share a little bit of a flavor of like what you can look forward to if you currently do not
Yeah.
have the book. Again, it's Crazy AF. And so maybe just share one or two key insights or strategies from the book that you have heard maybe from a lot of your readers, really resonated with them, and really they found to be impactful.
Yes, and thank you so much. I will say you were the very first person that got the book, I believe. You were at least the first person to get it and post it. So thank you for your support and helping that to catapult that to the bestseller. But just to clarify the title, by the way, if you think it's too provocative, it's Crazy, and the AF stands for and fearless. So I want to make sure that people know that. And we also, just to go to the term crazy, we've been told, going back to language, like, we shouldn't refer to people as crazy. And you're right.
Hmm.
But I'm using crazy as an action or a verb, and not
Hmm.
describe myself. So when we talk about doing crazy things in terms of action, in the book, it's about, looking, being able to step outside of ourselves and our careers
Yes.
and determining, is this career serving me? right? Am I serving myself? Is it time for me to reevaluate my relationship with my profession? And I start out with my personal journey. And one of the reasons that I had mental health crisis was that during COVID, when everything was put on pause, and I didn't have my speaking engagements and clients, and those were things that were
Yeah.
near to me. I was still the head of HR at the hospital, but believe it or not, during the pandemic, nobody was really doing anything bad. I didn't have anything from an HR perspective to do, especially at a hospital. It was very clinically focused. So for the
We weren't
first
interacting as much. People were like,
no,
"What's
no
happening
sexual
now? What do I
harassment,
do
no
with myself?"
anything. Right. So and I was in New York. So we were literally just trying to stay alive, in this health.
Yes, yes,
So with that, for the first time in my life in many decades, I didn't have anything to do. And my identity had been so tied to my professional success.
mm,
That was a trigger. Who am I without my profession? And so
yeah,
I think many people, especially in marginalized communities, women, we make that connection, right? It's our professional success goes on to define who we are. And so, based upon my personal journey of navigating that and how it did impact my mental health, I encourage people to take a look at their relationship with their job, with their profession,
mm,
workplace, and really look at, is this serving me? Is this serving
yeah,
my health? Am I having the conversations I need to have with others? Am I having the conversations I need to have with myself? Right. I talk about these instances that we have experienced lately with Dr. Gay, and knowing those warning signs of when it's time to plan your exit strategy out of the organization.
yes,
Right, which I think is essential. And being in the HR chair for so many years, I know those warning signs. Like, I
yeah,
know, like, when that organization, when that target's on your back, it's not going to move, so you need to start planning your exit strategy. Don't get caught off guard. So I give those kind of tips.
mm,
And I also have chapters in there for organizations on how they can cultivate cultures of mental wellness. And the thought being that, if from an individual perspective, if we're having those uncomfortable conversations about some of those psychological stressors that are impacting the way that we work, and on the other hand, if organizational leaders are equipped with the things they need to know to avoid those psychological factors and put intervention methods in place, that perhaps at the end of the day, we can cultivate cultures of mental well-being.
yes. So, quick question about that. Um, Natasha's, kind of evaluation. How do you think corporate America is doing right now around supporting the mental health needs of employees?
I think, like you said, we've made a step or two in
Mhm.
terms of corporate America. We are having conversations. I was so honored last year to be invited to so many organizations to share my story. So many organizations adopted the book. That was exciting, right? That that organizations are willing to have the conversations. They're also providing more access to mental health resources, realizing that EAP or even
Right.
health insurance is not enough. You got to supplement
Mm-mm.
things, right? Just because I have medical insurance does not mean that there is a practitioner available for me to take advantage of that. So
Absolutely.
glad to see that. But when I'm hearing the stories of, like, your Dr. Bailey's and in the DMs that I'm getting, or is that being realized, right? We're talking about it, but are we walking the walk? Because I'm still hearing far too often, yeah, I'm sharing my mental health struggles, or I'm bringing out some of these cultural, environmental factors that are impacting not just my mental health, but the mental health of the organization. And we're not seeing action being taken around that. And so
Yeah.
until organizations, access is great, and and providing supplemental, but until we organizations rather start to really reevaluate and take actions on their culture, we're not
Yeah.
move the needle forward. I can get all the therapy that I can get, but if I walk into a toxic work environment, right,
Right.
then that's not helpful to me, right? So I'm not seeing the needle moving forward. In fact, we're seeing it move backwards in many cases. We're seeing so many DEI programs that are being eliminated, people in
Yes.
DEI positions that are being eliminated, the budgets being cut back, et cetera, et cetera. That's not moving the needle forward, right? And
Mm-mm.
impacting the cycle. We're seeing top leaders such as Elon Musk saying, "What is this? It's harmful. It's racist." So when you're
Right.
seeing these things, you're thinking, "Is my leader thinking this way? Will my organization be next?" So until we address that cultural piece, I can't 100% say, "Oh yeah, I think we're moving the needle forward," because we're talking about it. Because we saw a lot of talking in 2020, and we thought we saw action, but that action has proven to be very temporary in many cases
Right.
on behalf of the organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well stated. So much more needs to be done. And I'm glad that you're one of the individuals that continues to keep this message very much top of mind for all of our organizational leaders. So I'm a Black woman. You're a Black woman, Natasha. And we also happen to be a part of a Black women's mastermind group where we really are supporting each other around just being founders and being in similar spaces. And so I am familiar with how frequently that group will socialize around some of the stresses of just kind of navigating as a Black woman. So I would love for you just to share a little bit about what unique psychological stresses have you observed and how do you address them in your consulting work as you're helping
Yes.
people to navigate those situations?
Yes. Yes. So the uniqueness is, really what we have been reading about, lately in some of these high profile incidents, right? And the uniqueness is that we can retain the same credentials, qualifications, and education as our counterparts, but we find ourselves in a unique struggle for those certain credentials and qualifications to be acknowledged and valued. We find that bar consistently being moved up, right? I see so many people, especially Black women and men, who are chasing degrees and certifications because they think, well, if I just do this, if I just do that. But I feel like there is no bar, right? And there's just always this proven accomplishment thing that we're facing. And then you seem to have the world in many ways that are rooting against you, right? So when
Right.
you do get that covenant, oh, I'm the first this, or like in the Dr. Gay scenario, I'm the first this, and you have people saying, oh, well, you only got that position because of some sort of initiative, ignoring the fact that she checks. If you look at the qualifications for that job and the previous people that held them, she has the same qualifications, but yet there was this, oh, she only was in that position due to some sort of initiative. Right. So you're facing that as well, right? Where again, I meet it, but yet people are rooting against me and then they're finding things to disqualify me, right?
Right.
That particular story was not unique or new to me. I write about those stories in my book that I published last.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've heard it in my work so much. And I remember sitting at the head of HR at organizations, and for whatever reason, someone would have a target on their back. I remember one particular instance at one of the healthcare organizations, and I noticed that all the write ups in the nursing department were for people of color. And this was
Mm-hmm.
after a year. And somehow I'm just noticing, and I'm like, I'm sitting in grievance. There was a labor organization, so they would grieve. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the people that are sitting across the table from me. And I'm like, you mean to tell me that there are no time and attendance issues or anything else with any of our white nurses? I mean, like it's only our nurses of color that have issues. It was especially with time and attendance. And so I escalated to the chief nursing officer and said, I think you have a problem within your nursing leadership
Good
because
for
I'm
you.
a trend here, and I went back and double checked and said, I'm not trying to go after anyone, but there hasn't been one white nurse that's been written up in a year and several people of color. And so I'm just going to run a time and attendance report. You can do that from one of the systems just to see, if I'm wrong. Come to find out, yes. So it's, oh, I couldn't get you for this. So I'm going to go check this to see, oh, yeah, I got you on something. And I'm going to continue to go after you on something. So, I had to bring that to the attention. We had to address that. Some of it was just unintentional, and some of it we believe to be intentional. So
Mm-hmm.
there is this so many different things that are happening that is leading up to this systemic racism, whether it is intentional,
Yes.
unintentional. It's just there. People still believe that people should not be in certain positions, and sometimes it's not racism, it's placism, right? You've got to have a
Mm-hmm.
within this organization. And once you start to rise up, I got a problem with that. You were my superstar until, right?
Until.
And so I face that as well, especially I would keep my speaking engagements secret and consulting secret, even though my job was doing well. I knew that was an issue. One time I went and blocked 10,000 people on LinkedIn that worked for that organization so they wouldn't see what I was doing.
Wow.
Because and the moment that somebody found out, it became an issue, right? And so I'm like, how are you doing this? Oh, I'm spending my every vacation day. I'm spending my every this day, my, my lunchtime. That's my time. If I want to stop
Yes.
my lunch break and do a training, what's wrong with that? And so it just became, an issue. And I'm seeing that those are the consistent stories that I continue to hear that are just what I like to say unique to Black people and other people of color.
Absolutely. So we will shift momentarily to take questions or comments from our audience. And so I just want to let you know that if you're interested in being added to the spotlight and presenting your question live to Natasha, I will give you a chance to do so momentarily. If you're part of the Zoom community, you can let us know that you are interested in that by using the raise hand feature that at the appropriate time I will call on you. If you're on LinkedIn Live, you can place your questions into the chat area or the comment section rather. And my team is watching that closely and we'll bring that over into this Zoom chat. And so multiple ways to participate. While you're percolating on maybe curiosities that are surfacing for you, I'm going to go to my next question. And really, this is more of a response to the insight that you just shared. I mean, I heard a lot of the pet to threat phenomenon that we know is really real as you were talking, through those stories that you shared. But what I'm also very cognizant of right now is this notion of the power and the burden of being the first, right? And I find that we often celebrate the first Black president, the first Black mayor, the first Black whatever, right? And sometimes I grieve for a moment, even when I am also, because I believe in the both and, I can really celebrate and feel happy that now we're seeing the first, but there's a part of me that also feels like, oh, I really do hope that their experience is not going to cause them distress. I really hope that their experience is not going to cause them mental health. I mean, issues. And
Mhm.
so that's real.
It is.
And I just wanted to toss that out there and see what kind of response maybe it comes up for you as you think about that. I mean, I think being the first has a lot of power, but it
Mhm.
also can be a burden. And I think that sometimes as a society, we are quick to judge when someone decides that maybe they have become the first, so they are the trailblazer, but then they say no longer, I don't want to stay, on this course. It's not for me. And I think that there's something to be said for us allowing those individuals to assess their personal situation and make a call based upon whatever type of emotional capacity they feel like they have. I don't blame a Dr. Gay. I don't blame anyone that may decide, you know what, I'm backing out. And so what are your thoughts on that,
Oh,
Natasha?
absolutely. And I got messages and comments when I said I applauded her for leaving, and that said, no, she should have fought. She should have stayed there, and we should have fought for her. And I 100% disagree with that. People have to make an individual decision. We cannot assess someone's emotional or psychological capacity based upon what we're seeing on the outside. There will be more that will be probably shared, perhaps. Even though I've heard enough, but we have no idea what was happening on the outside. She was getting death threats,
Yes.
over
Yes.
and over and what she says is plagiarism, which most people have never even read a dissertation before, and yet they were talking about plagiarism. I'm like, and I'm getting these messages about I'm like, do you know what plagiarism is? I am a college professor. You're gonna sit here and argue this with me, and it was disheartening. No, we should not. The moment that you decide that, hey, I'm choosing this job over my mental health, the moment you find
It,
yourself making that decision over and over again, you absolutely owe no one else anything but yourself. My theme for this year and what I've been telling people is to be more disappointing. And I know that's outside of the norm, but that's my phrase of the year. That's my ideology for the year. Is to be more disappointing because I have compromised, and I know so many other people who have compromised their mental and physical health
yeah.
because they didn't want to disappoint others. And at the end, the only person we are disappointing is ourselves,
Mhm.
and I've shared on LinkedIn, even not just my mental health journey, but my physical health journey. And I found myself at one point in my career facing almost, looking at almost weighing 300 pounds at one point and barely walking. One time we went to Disney World. My 70-some-year-old aunt had to push me around Disney in a wheelchair because my physical health had declined. I didn't even know my
Yeah.
physical health was declining because at that point I'm, in this corporate position, got the big check, the big title, everything that I had on my, wish list and that dream board, that vision board, that was tangible had achieved. But yet I was sick. And because it was sitting in cars for long commutes, sitting in front of computers, missing time with my child. At one point, and I share this in my keynotes, is that, and maybe in the book, I can't remember if I shared in the book or not, but at one point when we first moved to the city, my husband came out of his career to help me as my career was trajectory to be the primary caretaker, et cetera. And, one day he asked me to take my child to school. I drove her to school and she says, "Mom, this is not my school." And I'm like, "Well, what school do you go to?" I had no clue. So
Yes.
the
Yes.
state that I was in, I was consistently making these choices of putting my work over everything else because I didn't want to disappoint. Well, you know what?
Mm,
I'm okay with being more disappointing. You know,
yes.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that perhaps, and just like you said today, I would be okay with disappointing you if I literally could not have a conversation. I was going to be okay with that
Yeah.
to tell you,
Yeah.
just can't do it today. And
Yeah.
have done that before and been okay with it to say, look, I know you were dependent on me, but unfortunately, I'm not saying to not hold to your commitments. I'm not saying to be selfish or not, but when you're consistently, disappointed, worried about disappointing others, when you're disappointing yourself, that's when you've got to start making some decisions in your life. And when I started to do that last year, it has made such a significant difference in my mental health, my physical health, and along the way, believe it or not, I had the best year yet in my business and worked the least that I have in my career.
No, you've shared those stories with me, and so I think again, you're giving people hope as you continue to socialize and with your vulnerability. So we do have a question from Michael
Okay.
Sinclair that's part of our community today, and his question is: provided that you had to block people from seeing what you were doing, how did you deal with the kickback and animosity as a result of your actions to block others?
Yeah, so they didn't know they were blocked until people would come new into the organization and they like, "Oh, you Natasha Bowman from LinkedIn." They're like, "Oh, wait, like, wait, what's going on here?" So I finally had to
Mm,
unblock, like, "Oh, I don't know what happened." So I finally started unblocking me, and they didn't say anything to me verbally, at least, that they felt, any animosity, of not being accessible to me. But it proved after I started unblocking and people started having access, I started to see a shift in behavior, right? All of a sudden, because
yeah,
they knew what I was doing, all of a sudden that became a problem. They started to want to even narrate, "Oh, you know what? I don't know if I would put that out there, that
mm,
down the organization." And I'm like, I don't even have this organization listed as my workplace. I never listed.
yes,
So
exactly.
people don't know I work here. Nobody knows I work here but me and you. Me in the organization. And so, but it was I got more kickback after I allowed them access to my LinkedIn than them being, blocked that I know of.
Right.
It wasn't anything
Yeah.
that was verbally
Yeah.
articulated to me.
Yeah, it just amplifies the scrutiny that often Black women are under in the workplace. Even if they're performing at a high level, meeting all the marks, it's like, again, that kind of pet to threat. Well, she's doing all of that. Oh, whoa. And
Yeah.
so, I think it's important for us to be thoughtful about if we find ourselves kind of having some endeavors outside of maybe our workplace, how much of that do we want to be public knowledge? And so there's something to be said about navigating that. I want to ask you about your foundation.
Mhm.
And specifically, I know that I was mentioning at this top of the hour that, of course, we're at this period of time where many communities and organizations are recognizing and honoring the legacy of Dr. King through different efforts and initiatives. And you have an event that's coming up on February the 1st that your foundation is putting on. So I would love for you to talk to us about the Bowman Foundation and specifically give us a preview of what to expect at the Black History Month event that's going to intersect also this mental health conversation. So
Yes,
tell us about that.
absolutely. So yes, Martin Luther King Day is coming up Monday, which just so happens to be my daughter's birthday.
Where'd you say
Uh,
that?
So hopefully she'll be
Yes.
a freedom fighter as well. But yes, we are. So I founded the Bowman Foundation for Workplace Equity and Mental Wellness after my mental health crisis, and realizing that again, I needed to do something to amplify um, the message that there's a mental health crisis within the Black community. And as a
Right.
Black woman who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it was important to me after doing research and realizing I didn't see many faces that looked like mine that was publicly saying I have a serious mental illness. So being that
Mhm.
person only at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to be that person to share my mental health. And I'm going to do something for those that are struggling like me to break the stigma. So my husband and I founded the Bowman Foundation for Workplace Equity and Mental Wellness, and as a nonprofit. And we are hosting this event to kick off Black History Month, because when I think about Black History Month, oftentimes we are having the same conversations, right? We're
Yeah.
celebrating our ancestors, we're celebrating civil rights leaders, et cetera, et cetera. But why don't we this month, in terms of Black history, think about how are we going to make a positive history for the future? And
Mhm.
do that, right? We've got to address the current crisis within
Absolutely.
Africa, and that is our mental health. So we're hosting a free event. Please register, absolutely free. Balancing Act, Black Professionals and Mental Health. We're going to be talking deeper into what we've talked about during this conversation about those current issues that we're facing as Black professionals at work. We're going to be talking about solutions as well, as a path forward. I'm so honored to have speakers from places such as the Center for Disease Control, from the American
Yes.
Psychological Association, from Google, from Microsoft, that are going to be joining us in this conversation. So we've got all New York City Mental Health Office of Mental Health will be there. So many different facets and perspectives that'll be contributing to that conversation. We're glad to host it free of charge. That's what we're doing, is providing resources. We've got 2 white papers out there. That's what we're doing as part of our work. And so we just hope to see you there so we can continue this conversation and go deeper into the things that we've talked about here with some leading experts.
Love that. Many thanks to you, your husband, and all of the other organizers and visionaries who are helping to bring this together. I think it's so needed. And I love that it's being centered in Black History Month. We did place the Bowman Foundation's website into the chat area and also the event link. Again, it's free. You heard it here. It's free. So make sure. Now, is this virtual or in person?
Virtual,
It's
virtual. Yes.
virtual.
So no
Okay. Virtual.
excuses. It's 3 hours. You can jump in and out, do what you need to do, but no excuses not to be there. Share it out. Let's show people that we care about mental health in the Black community.
Yeah.
The way you can do that is just to show up, just to be a part of
Show
a
up.
conversation, amplify a message. You never know your message and who it reaches. You'd be surprised. And so therefore, that if you don't have a financial contribution, you don't have that, sharing out a link, join a conversation. That's a collective grassroots effort. And that's what we're hoping to do through this ground,
Yeah.
was to create a grassroots movement to address this critical issue.
I love it. I love it. And so as we're talking about mental health, and particularly mental health as it relates to the Black community, what are some of the maybe top 2 or 3 misconceptions that you feel like are floating out there right now that people can start maybe getting their heads wrapped around as they plan to register and attend again
Yeah.
the Bowman Foundation's event coming up February 1st?
Yeah, so misconceptions in Black mental health. I think that going back to even my story, that if you are a Black person and you struggle with your mental health, then you can't be successful. Even
Right.
though you demonstrated it, right? The moment they find out about that diagnosis, and unfortunately, it's not just for Black people. I mean, this is for anyone with a mental health condition, but
Yeah.
especially true, right? When you've already got that target, you've already got people rooting against you, right? That you're not able to function, right? I think that's a misconception. Trying to think of more. I think it's less about misconceptions and more about the particular unique challenges that are faced, if you don't mind
Yeah. That's
shifting
true.
there.
No, absolutely.
And
Yes.
I think, there's a huge stigma still in the Black community
Hmm.
around mental health and even its very existence. And, I got a lot of pushback that, from my family, who's a Southern back family. And when I gave a diagnosis, and it was, oh, you have this diagnosis, you don't have bipolar disorder, you don't go to church. And,
Mm,
so it's the intersectionality of the faith in the Black community, uh,
yeah.
mental health, and that's something we have to address. Is that you can, and I had to tell even my own one of my own parents this, because my sister was diagnosed with bipolar disorder years ago, and she's a very big person of faith. So I'm like, so how come my sister that goes to church every Sunday has the same diagnosis? Has nothing to do with that. But these
Right.
sometimes when a substitute, I'm not saying not to use your faith, not to pray or do all these things. But a lot we've been advised to substitute, right?
Yeah.
For treatment, right? And so that's
Yes.
that we need to address within the Black community as well. That's just a big, red herring around
Yeah.
around it. And also the last part is just don't share. You're setting yourself up for failure as a Black person if you do disclose that you're struggling with your mental health. And I'm not saying that's not the case, right? But in my head, if I share with my employer that I'm struggling with my mental health and I start to see things, that I don't want to work for that employer anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
everyone is showing that they don't care about me as a person anyway, and I need to go move on anyway. So those are some of the things that we're going to be, again, taking a deeper dive into that are very unique to the Black community, and also that access, the cultural competency of mental health professionals. That are giving us treatment. I've shared the story, and it's in my book as well. That along my path, I had someone that wasn't Black, that was a mental health professional that was assigned to me in the hospital, and I ideated suicide. After that point, my husband called her, and was advised to take me to the hospital. He says, "Okay, we're on our way." I get a call back personally from my mental health professional that says, "Oh, I called CPS and I called the police," because she didn't trust. She had never seen a Black man as a caregiver before, so she didn't trust
Mm,
that he was going to get me to safety in a hospital and get my daughter to safety.
mm.
So that,
Wow.
going to cultural competency, that's the
Yes.
issue that's being faced, is when you're getting treatment for someone that doesn't understand the unique challenges that are being faced in the Black community, or doesn't see someone like, I mean, just as unique as a Black male who's a caregiver of a family, right? So lots
Mhm.
of unique things there that we've got to have discussions and solutions for.
Yeah, very unique nuance that I have not thought about specific to mental health and again the caregivers of those who may be dealing with mental health issues and yeah, the believability factor. I know we talk often how Black women are not believed, but in this case, it was a Black man was not believed. And so yeah, that's really interesting. I want to go back to something that you said as well when we were talking about the misconceptions. Yes, I just want to amplify what you said. I do think that there are a lot of individuals that feel like it's an either or. You can believe your creator to heal you and take medicine,
Yes.
to
Yes.
help your situation. And then I
Absolutely.
also Yes. And then I also want to, talk about this notion of not sharing. I wanted to show up very, very authentic to this conversation. There was a time that I was not willing to kind of share about because I just felt like I wanted to keep it close to the chest. It's personal for me. And I have found it to be very liberating to be open about my mental health, challenges and the fact that I do believe in talk therapy. I do believe in the medicine. I do believe in talking about it with others. I do believe in I mean, sometimes the greatest conversations that we'll have in my house is when we're talking about maybe our last experience with our therapy sessions. So I think the more we can do that, especially as Black families, the more that we're going to see it become normalized. And I think that that is the gateway towards getting everyone the needed help. Because whether we realize it or not, every single one of us are going to find ourselves at some point in time or another really challenged and with mental health issues. And sometimes we don't even know what it looks like. So, if nothing else, just get yourself educated about what it looks like, right? So we don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Anyway, and there are a lot of people who are high functioning. When we talk about the misconceptions that maybe they're not going to be competent once you release that information. No, get educated on this. I know of a lot of people that are high functioning with a lot of different illnesses, right? It doesn't make
Absolutely.
it less of an illness or less of a situation that doesn't require attention. So Anyway, we have to do that. I just recently shared an email about the lows of 2023, the low lights, and then I shared one followed up with the highlights of
Yep.
2023. But the amount of attention and response through text and just feedback from the low lights, communication was reaffirming to me that we have to talk more about this because people are thinking about it, they're dealing with it. So I mean, why not? Let's do it in community with each other,
Yes, I was so proud of you. Remember one of our earlier conversations, I
I
was
do,
like,
yes.
"Dr. White, who are you? I want you to be
Yes.
more
You
vulnerable
did. You
and
said, "Take
show
the lens
yourself."
off."
Yes, and you
Yeah,
have done
beyond
that,
what
and
you do, take that
yes,
aside. Who are
yes.
you? And that was so liberating to me, and I continue to think about that conversation. But yeah, so I wanna give you our last and final 60 seconds to close us out in whatever
Oh,
way that feels appropriate to you, but I want to first start by thanking you. Thank you for how you show up to the world because it is making a difference. I know I comment on almost every single one of your posts just to remind you of that. And when we talk, I verbalize it because I don't want you to forget that. I don't want you to forget that. It is making a difference. And I just so appreciate the gift in you that you're willing to share for others. It's not hard to put ourselves out there, right? And
no.
so thank you for that. And thank you to this community for joining us. But please take a moment to close us out.
Yeah, I just want to start by appreciating you for giving me this very safe space to share my story. Sometimes it can be a very heavy burden to bear to be vulnerable on almost a daily basis, and but talking to people like you who not only on camera are supportive, but you're just one of those ones that will check in, that will amplify. And again, I am so gracious to you and our friendship and what you're doing
Mm.
to have nonprofits, and you are doing the work. And I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and your support, and everyone on this call that I hope to be within my circle as well, as we move forward. So I just want to end with this appreciation for you and the person
Mm.
you are, and it means so much to me. Your friendship and the work that you're doing means so much, and I'm just so glad that you were brought into my life.
Mm,
Thank
Thank you so much. Have a great and safe weekend, everyone. Hope to see you back next Friday for Intentional Conversations.
you.